Let's go. Can LSU still make the playoff after an all-time meltdown versus Texas A&M? We'll get to that a little bit later, but let's start with actually some good film right here. DJ Chester, who we will talk about quite a bit in this film study today. Look at this. Obviously, he's getting not necessarily ragdolled here, but he actually does turn his guy to the inside because they're trying to run through this gap. And obviously, Garrett Dellinger getting hurt in this game really ended up hurting us. Look at him help Chester out, get to the second level. This is how run blocking should actually look. And then we also, on the outside, get a 2-for-1 where the guy in man coverage versus Kyren Lacy is locked into him, and Kyren actually goes block another safety. So this is really good run design, really good run scheme. And if Caden doesn't get shoe-strung from the backside here, I mean, it might have been blouses here. So really good stuff. All right, so obviously LSU throughout the evening really had struggles protecting Texas A&M. They just did, and that was expected, right? This is a really good defensive line at home, and this is really good quarterbacking from Garrett Nussmeier getting this football to Caden Durham. And in the postgame show, I understand the box score did not look good for Caden. Man, he really stepped up, right? I mean, this is a guy who's been playing through a foot injury, and it wasn't as bad as people initially thought, but it's still, something, right? And look at him able to turn up. You get some really good blocking down the field from Kyren, and he almost houses it. Really sexy stuff. All right, this is what really pissed me off about this game is that the game started so well for LSU as a run-blocking unit. Okay, so we get in this 11-ish personnel with our receiver, which is Trey'Dez Green, who also serves as a tight end, and then we actually bring our actual tight end to the formation, and we get some numbers in this box, right? Actually, A&M should feel pretty good about where they are in this run fit right here, but we actually just block this to near perfection, right? We get a good double right here from DJ Chester. Good job by Mason to help Will Campbell out here. And look at all this push and surge. Chester starting the game off right, and all we need Josh Williams to do is get skinny through there, and he does. Make one guy miss, and you score. It's a good job by 18 making the touchdown saver there. And we are just pounding the damn football right down their throats. Yeah, this is just really good red zone defense. So, basically we ran some variation of this versus Arkansas on the 2-point last week where guys were just stopping and we're just trying to get Trey'Dez Green in a mismatch right here. This is a really bad throw from Garrett Nussmeier. It needs to be high. It does need to be high, okay? But it needs to be back-shouldered here. And instead, he decides to get really safe with it, which is fine. And once again, I don't understand the baggy undershirt thing. I really don't. But it's just way too high. It's never being completed. And one thing we'll talk about throughout this film study today is Garrett just does not run, okay? And he has a pocket to step up into in this spot to, try and get something open. But this is a quick hitter developing play. It's either there or it isn't. And it isn't, and we just throw this thing away. We do start off with the field goal, though. All right, so third. All right, it's third and Brian here. And once again, LSU decides to get exotic here. They put Xavier Debo-Atkins as an end. He backs out into coverage, and now we're only rushing 4. And, yeah, we're changing the post-snap picture. You see Major Burns sinks center field. And I've never been a biggest fan of this alignment, but it works here. And Connor Weigman decides to take a check down, and guess what happens? We eat it alive. All right, really good stuff from Whit Weeks feeling out this rush. His job right here is to be the secondary guy, where if Connor does go this way, you're just right there in his face, and we make this play difficult. All right, I get on Whit Weeks for not making a one-handed pop-up interception. Whit, you need to do it every time. Kidding. We'll talk about Whit throughout this film study today. Obviously, you throw it here, and Sage Ryan makes a freaking play. All right, this second consecutive week, Sage Ryan makes a play, which is, a change for him. But overall, he's playing better, right? I think this game was if we're being honest. But he steps up, makes a big play, and we have the momentum, baby. Man, we get this 3rd and 2. Joe Sloan, what the hell, bro? You start the game so well. You started it so well. but it's not how you started. It's how you finish, right? So 3rd and 2, this is just really good stuff. Shelton, who still hasn't caught a pass, does a good job creating traffic for us to get this football to Trades Green. We ran this play last week versus Arkansas. It's really tough to stop. We get the football into the hands of our biggest target, and he falls forward here. And this is what really gets me angry. It's the same thing. Joe Sloan getting really sexy early in the game. The play calling was really freaking good to start. So you guys know I hate cramming everyone in. I also love great stories. This is Tyson Edwards. He played football at a college named Columbia. He's a graduate student, and now he's our de facto fullback here. And we're running a play action to Mason Taylor on like a little fade-ish kind of route. I love this, right? Because our run game never really works with this. So let's get Mason on a leak here. As you can see, the leak works really well. I brought this up in our post-game film study. I'm a little shocked LSU didn't keep doing these types of plays, right? And this works. Mason gets a really good jump, and Garrett could not have thrown this football any better, and Mason makes a very difficult but makeable catch, and we score a tutty. Good design. All right, let's move ahead here to this 2nd and 10, 5:45 left to go in the second quarter. And, man, this is just really, really, really poor run design, okay? The first part of this I don't like is Trades Green is never making this block on an end. He's just not, especially with Garrett never pulling the football in these kind of zone stretches to the outside. Trades is never making that block, especially if you never pull it. Now, could Trades have done a little bit better with this? Yes, but he's honestly – no, I'm sorry. I don't even know if George Kittle's making that block. I'm serious. And it's just dead from the start. You know, it's a problem, right? LSU had a lot of these 1st and 10, and then they'll just run on 2nd and 10. And it's just obvious play calling, right? It's just not good. It's not good offense, and it's honestly got to stop. All right, this is good offense on this 3rd and 7. If you're going to crowd the line, let's work the man-to-man assignment versus single high versus Kyren Lacy. You see, he's just cooking this guy, right? He's just reading where that DB is, and eventually he comes back here to Garrett Nussmeier after creating the separation, and he catches it. And it's just really good offense. I'm not going to show you the play, though. LSU does end up missing a field goal, and it was a rough night. All right, let's get to the Aaron Anderson touchdown. And before we get into one negative about this play, man, let's just All right, so we move ahead here. It's 10-7. Once again, we're not going to do a lot of Connor Weigman reps. LSU's defense obviously shut him down, and he might just be a whole bag of peach emoji. But, man, I got to be honest. So let's move ahead to the Aaron Anderson touchdown, 10-7. Obviously, this is midway through the second quarter. And, man, Aaron is just so damn good. I mean, there's just no other way around. He's just the perfect slot receiver with some outside receiver qualities as well. And one thing that's been really impressive about him is his balance, right? He does a really good job of keeping his feet, right? You saw it last week versus Arkansas, some of the ridiculous plays he made, right? Just an overall aesthetic, a true Uno, right? You guys know if you wear the jersey number 1, I'm going to be a lot more critical of you because it's just that you're the Uno, right? You're the guy. And, man, he's just been sensational. There's no other way around it. Now, let's talk about the negatives. And we're going to get back to this. I want you to remember this play. I cannot tell you how many times I've watched this team this year where we have a big play, but it involves our center being driven directly back into the quarterback. Now, in this instance, he does get tripped up by his own guy in Miles Frazier, but it does not take away that this has been a consistent issue for LSU, right? Whether you're getting tripped, whether it's just a bull rush. Obviously, Dellinger is out of the game by now. It's just a lot of this, and it's really difficult for an offense to succeed when, we're getting chalk outlined, right? It's a really good throw. Obviously, Garrett, it's slightly behind him. That's where we want it. And Aaron does the rest, man. Just sensational. Absolutely, positively sensational. And what's funny here is if this were flag football, that would be the tackle of the year. Garrett Nussmeier, back to pass. And we get Chris Hilton involved. Now, this is a slight negative, and we brought this up in the film study last week. Garrett plays quick for the sake of playing quick, and sometimes he's just predetermining that he's throwing this comeback route. Now, sometimes it's just by the coverage alignment that Garrett is just automatically throwing the comeback route, right? We play a lot of teams that love to back off their corners versus our speed receivers. So, yeah, if Garrett sees that this DB is backpedaling, he knows this ball is going to get there. And if you throw quick enough, it increases the space for this guy to make him miss. But you'll see that it ends up biting us in the rear end later in the game. All right, one of my favorite play designs. I brought this up in a Power Hour SEC film study. You fake your throwing the screen here to Aaron, and we are then throwing the ball to Kyren on the go, right? There is a vertical go. Kyren is the second level of that go, so there's a receiver down here, and it works almost every time, right? Really good design from Joe Sloan, who called one hell of a first half, right? This had been a really well-called game outside of some really bad second down runs. Yeah, so LSU had a massive drop issue in this game, all right? That doesn't absolve Garrett Nussmeier of his mistakes, but, man, Chris has dropped some of these comebacks throughout his career, and, you know, we just got to have that. We just got to have those 4 yards on first down, and, well, we don't have it. So we get to this 3rd and 10, and, you know, it's a Chris Hilton drop, and then A&M had a really good defensive rep after this. I hate saying to get rid of any certain play design, especially if you rep it a lot in practice, but I tweeted this out last night and got a bunch of responses. We have got to quit running 4 verticals, right? And the thing is, we suck at it. We just do. And I won't spend too much time on another aspect of this play because we've already done a breakdown on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/LSU football. There's one hidden meaning in this play that we're not discussing here because it does take a little bit more time. All right, so we get a really good 4th down stop from Gio Paez batting the ball down, and we move ahead here after Kyren struggled to make a very difficult grab, right? Our receivers, I thought, played fine, right? But we didn't make the difficult plays enough for us to seal this game. Now, it's probably not even top 10 reasons why we lost this game, not bringing down the difficult catches, but there you go. Now, Joe Sloan just gets very unlucky here. I actually really like this play call. It's just these delayed running back draws. We had a huge run versus Ole Miss. I say huge. It was huge for us. Doing this very thing. And this should work if they're not running a twist, right? A twist is the worst play to run this against because the defensive lineman is twirling around as a second level pressure or like a second wave of pressure. And the design of this draw is to get these guys upfield and run underneath it, right? It's just hard to block this. They had the perfect call for this. If they weren't running a twist, we're probably in a pretty good spot here. Now, could Miles Frazier have done a little bit more with this? No, because he was cut off right there. So I like the run design there. There's just nothing you can really do in that spot. So to win these games, you've got to make the difficult catches, all right? And this was a play before. So we'll talk about this play. You know, you don't want your hands to be underneath the ball, right? His hands should actually be the other way. And if Kyren makes his grab, we're in the red zone again, cooking, right? I thought at first that this was just a DB making a really good play. But now that I've watched this, yeah, the DB made a really good play on it. But your hands have got to be the other way around, and you've got to make that catch. All right, so we get to the second half, and I want to show you this. This is how run defense should look. I think one of the more overrated things in run game is getting penetration, right? Is penetrating into the backfield good in the run game? Yes, because you can obviously get a tackle for loss, but I would prefer you stay in your gap, right? And I want you to see this. This is how run defense is supposed to look, okay? You'll see that we have this B gap accounted for. We have this contain accounted for. Greg Penn is the play side A gap. Gio Paez is the backside A gap. And watch how each of these gaps are filled. Okay, notice no one is knifing into the backfield trying to make a play. We're waiting on Le'Veon Moss to run basically nowhere. Okay, the only place that was open, which was potentially there, is a cutback through here, but Paez would be able to knife through and make that play. That is what run defense should look like. All right, it's honestly not that hard. We'll talk about that a little bit later, though. Okay, and you'll see that Moss can't really go anywhere, and Savion Jones is the beneficiary. All right, so it was a rough special teams game, and it was a tough game for my guy Xavier Thomas. It really was. You've got to catch this punt. You've got to catch this punt, right? This is just so dangerous to not catch it, okay? Especially in this spot with our gunner being right there. Man, we got lucky. Just kept spamming this play until they stopped it. All right, too high. We get a man coverage indicator that more than likely this is two-man under. Garrett Nussmeier is a two-man under assassin, which is crazy considering he never runs, right? It's one of the best plays versus two-man under, which is a scramble, okay? This is just nasty work. We should have just kept running Aaron Anderson slants until they stopped it. And we'll talk about that throughout, all right? Man, this is just a really good play. Aaron breaking not one, not two, but three tackles here, and he almost scored it through here, right? Look at that. This is a ridiculous play. It really is. So much is made about Garrett Nussmeier's decision-making on the interceptions. It was really bad, but not enough is being discussed about his decision-making on all other route concepts, okay? Man, this is not good. It's not good quarterbacking at all from Garrett Nussmeier. Okay, the first thing about this play that just drives me crazy is the last ball that I want to throw is a vertical to Chris Hilton, all right? The benefit of Chris Hilton is him not actually catching the football. It's him as a clear out, right? It's a vertical clear out to help create space over here. And what you'll notice is Garrett Nussmeier actually chooses the last person he should have thrown the football to in this situation, okay? Let's keep throwing the football to Aaron Anderson versus two high shell coverage, man-to-man again. It's two-man under, basically, again. We want to keep throwing this until they stop it. Keep freaking throwing it, okay? Bang! Are we cooking here? All right? That is a ball that we're completing all the time, every time. All right? This is what we want, right? Aaron is making everybody and their grandmother miss. Throw this. And if you're going to work one vertical, why not work the vertical to the backside here where there is a vertical from or a deep over from Mason Taylor that could potentially draw this safety with him, okay? Which, guess what? The safety was drawn with Mason Taylor, all right? We want to work the football to our better receiver here, okay? Now, what makes this even worse is how we actually have good protection, all right? I am not going to criticize Paul Mabenga at all in this film study, right? I'll mention a few missed blocks here or there, but, obviously it's a very hostile, difficult spot. Are we giving up some bull rush here? Yes, but you got to step up for your guy, all right? I would have loved this check down here to Caden Durham over throwing a prayer, a goal ball prayer to Chris Hilton, okay? So we chose the worst option, including QB scramble, right? I prefer you just run instead of thinking that this is going to get complete to Chris Hilton, all right? So first thing is we don't throw good goal balls. The second thing is Chris Hilton plays this terribly, absolutely, positively terribly, all right? Why are you jumping right now? Why are you jumping, all right? What you're taught as a receiver on a vertical is you want to wait until the last possible second to make a play on the football. And the reason is because when you jump like this, this allows the DB to react to you, All right? Now, I understand this is Des Ricks, a guy that we recruited, and I understand we want this pass interference call. Is that PI? Maybe. But I'll tell you this. This ball from Garrett is not bad, right? I'm just not throwing this ball to Chris Hilton in this spot. It's really not bad. Chris mistimes his jump terribly. You don't want to leave your feet. This has always been an MO with Chris Hilton. He jumps too early. He dives for balls he doesn't need to. And look, there's no reason for him to jump that early and try and make a one-handed grab like that. Honestly, this is how it works, right? I spoke to an official about this last night, okay? If you're out of control like this, they're not going to bail you out. They're just not going to bail you out in that spot. Once again, if you just run normally, all right, run as if this ball was thrown. And honestly, if you just keep running, it is on target, you're getting a PI, right? It's just a bad play on it. Brian Kelly chews him out, right? It is a big mistake, okay? So, still, we want the football in Aaron Anderson's hands. That's where we want it. The backside contain actually becomes a part of the run fit this over here, okay? Watch. Scorton, once he sees that this is a handoff, he immediately knows that Garrett Nussmeier is not pulling this, okay? So there's a lot of different things you can do where it doesn't involve Garrett Nussmeier actually running himself, right? What you can do is you can show this, all right? Show that this is a run to the inside, but instead you actually run the option to the left, right? This is a huge problem for me in the Joe Sloan run scheme, and a guy that he can actually steal some ideas from is Lane Kiffin. He is the absolute best at calling runs where the blocks themselves from the offensive line don't need to be completed, right? What you use that for is a decoy, right? So you see we're running counter GY to the right side, right? So guess what the defense does? They read that it's counter GY to the right side, and they immediately just sprint to the right side. So what you can do here is fake this and actually quick pitch it to the left. Or if the end decides to just stay backside, what you can do is show this look and then actually just run the option, right? If the end commits to Garrett Nussmeier, you pitch it. I mean, there's so many different creative things that I would like to see Sloan add to the run game. There's just nothing that's going to work. Look at how they just crammed this bitch in, and there's really nothing there, okay? And guess who makes the tackle? It's Gordon, all right? This is not a regular run fit, right? It's just that they know what we're doing. This is the perfect example of predictability. And honestly, we blocked this pretty well, right? We get a seal here. We get a good bounce from the running back. But because Scorton is able to just work his way all the way through, he's able to make this tackle. That's actually a good job by Mbenga. And he makes the play, okay? It's bad. So specificity matters. I don't want to just be a hot take. Joe Sloan needs to improve without providing actual examples, okay? So we're not, in this spot, Tennessee, running counter GY, you're running counter GT, right? Or at least the defense thinks you're running counter GT to the left. So watch what happens. They pull both the guard and the tackle to the right side, which makes this defense think that they are running to the right side. All right. Now, you wouldn't think that Tennessee is running to the right side because the running back is actually to the right. So if there is a handoff, more than likely the running back is going to a left, right? But because defenses key pullers, whether it's defensive linemen or backers, watch what this does. Even though it is a clear running back situation where they're running to the left, the pullers going to the right side draws these guys to the right side. Okay? Now, I mentioned this quite a bit about how I don't like the LSU run game because we don't have these types of plays. I say this quite often. We don't have many plays where the run is not successful because of the blocks ahead of it, right? There's not a single offensive lineman here that has to complete a single block for this play to be successful because we are trusting these offensive linemen to be a decoy, right? they could whiff, honestly, every single one of these blocks and this play still be successful, right? Because it's just a little stretch to the backside. Now, Scorton actually just ran to the right side. This time the end does hold serve, but this is what I'm talking about, right? We put so much stress on our offensive linemen, and we run a lot of quote-unquote misdirection plays, but we don't run enough misdirection where it doesn't require your offensive line to complete absolutely positively perfect blocks. And as we get ready for Alabama, these are the kinds of plays we should run versus them. But we need to hold on to the football. All right. So we get out the field here on this third down, and they call a really good blitz. I mean, this honestly is just better defense. I don't mind the play because earlier we ran this play with Kyren for a first down. They bring a nickel blitz from back here, and we actually do have a guy replacing that nickel blitz right here. So obviously in this spot, if you're Garrett and you see that this guy is blitzing, this is where you probably want to go with the football, okay? But I also understand trying to work this backside to Kyren. But Kyren, of course, is going to be patient on this route. He trusts the protection and get it done. So Garrett just has to back foot this and give A&M a lot of credit. Really good defensive call. I understood why Garrett didn't want to work to Mason there. I get it. But we have to punt the football. Let's give JVR Suggs a lot of credit. I mean, he was really good in this game. All right. Good little swim move right here. Get a sack. And, this eventually led to an A&M punt. Good stuff. Really good stuff. Or you want to see why Will Campbell's a first-round pick? I mean, holy crap. This is redunculous. Okay? Seal this guy to the inside. Nick Scorton, who's been killing us. Watch Will just put his ass into the turf. Okay? That's called stepping up, when there's some injuries. And obviously we get a very nice run here on 2nd and 8 to make it a manageable third down. And we start off with the false start penalty on this drive with Emory Jones, and Kyren had a catch, and then we had this play. Okay, let's go to the 3rd and 2 interception. This was the biggest play in the game because it's totally preventable. Obviously checkdowns to the running back always look better in retrospect, but this for a first down is there if you want it, okay? And that's kind of crazy when you look back at it. All right. Now, let's go back to the beginning of this play. And we're picking up a twist stunt right here. And Emory Jones gets put on his rear end. Okay. That's okay. We'll take that. Because, man, if Garrett is able to just sit in here, he's got Mason right here for a first down as well. Okay. So Garrett likes to spin out and roll out to the left. And what you'll eventually see on this play is the ball where he should have thrown the football is to C.J. Daniels working on the comeback. This ball to Aaron Anderson should never, ever, ever be thrown. But you'll see that C.J. is right here. This is a first. This is a first down, move the chains. But now we just got to float this ball up. There's really nothing Aaron could do other than not even try to catch this football, just bat this down. But that's not on him. It's just a really bad throw. And, there's no other way around it. It really is one of the worst throws of the Garrett Nussmeier era. And actually, this wasn't CJ. It was Xavion on the comeback or working back. And like he's saying, hey, I'm right here. Throw it. Throw it. That's a first down. And the good thing about this throw is because his body is shielding the DB here, that's never going to get picked off either. So for whatever reason, Garrett elected to throw this ball to Aaron, and it was picked. Okay, so Marcel Reed enters the game, and this is where we have to start guessing a little bit because the thing about zone read assignments is you honestly don't know whose job is who, right? Because there are so many different ways to defend it. Judging by the play design here and how this actually looks, I'm guessing Savion Jones is the contained defender, that he needs to be the one that's responsible for the quarterback on the pull, right? So I think on this one, once again, I'm just guessing, Savion Jones should be the guy responsible for Marcel Reed, and we never want him in this much space, and now we need someone to get off a block and make a play. Can't do it. and Marcel Reed's walking in untouched, and it's a tutty. All right, so 1st and 10, and this shows you Mike Elko is one hell of a coach. Momentum shifts. We go to the play that we love to run at the beginning of games, and this is essentially, the start of a new game, right? Caden Durham in the flat, right? We did it versus Arkansas, right? I recommended run this. Guess what? They were ready for it. And, this play works a lot, but you could see that they just had it sniffed out after, we got a huge throw to Caden to start the game. They said, look, we're not going to let Caden Durham beat us in the passing game. 2nd down. And, look, this will come off, this film study, as me just piling on one player. But, this is really, really, really poor stuff from DJ Chester. And if he is able to execute this block, we're getting out of trouble here. We just are, okay? And you'll see from a different angle in just a second that this block really isn't that hard. And this has been the major issue with LSU this season. Teams are still able to run 2 high shells versus us, which hurts our vertical passing game, and we cannot run versus it, right? So they elect to run this 5-1 look. The good thing about running versus a 5-1 like this is if you're able to get to the second level, you might cook, right? So what do? Well, we're pulling our best player, Will Campbell here, around, and we're getting Will into space, one of our best playmakers. Well, you'll see that he has to pick up DJ Chester's guy. And the funny thing is, let's just say DJ Chester is able to execute this relatively simple block, okay? If he's able to get play side of 13 here, Will is coming around and he's getting this backer, all right? So pretend Chester gets him. Will is getting this backer, and guess what? Okay? Durham has a choice to make, all right? He can obviously cut through here or cut through here, just depending on where, Will gets this block, but he can't do either, okay? And I can't tell you how many Caden Durham runs I've watched this year, in particular in the red zone, where DJ Chester gets blown up and Caden Durham is still able to make the play into something, right? It's an issue. It's an issue, okay? So full disclosure, I do not know this man, but his father's actually a good friend of mine, right? This is actually a guy that camped at LSU early. His name's DJ Hicks. He was a 5-star. And, he's not really played a whole lot because Texas A&M has amazing depth. But right here, all right, this block is relatively simple. The one thing we don't want to do is allow him to go across our face, right? What do I mean by that? Well, as a blocker here, we want to make sure our helmet or our shoulder pad is on this outside shoulder. Now, it is a little weird because this is actually a run stunt here, all right? He is a little bit off the football, so you have to be a little bit more patient with your release. But one thing I think teams have done, and they've really out-scouted our linemen, we have a massive lean problem, right? We lean way too much in our blocking, right? What do I mean by lean? Well, we lose our leverage, stick our head down, and allow guys to cross face, right? If we can get Hicks 13 going this way, guess what? We're cooking, all right? Unless Chester was supposed to let him. Yeah, I just don't know if we should run any more zone blocking schemes until we get better about leaning and leverage, right? It's a lot of penetration. It's not a bad block, but, man, it's broken. Our run game is very, very, very broken, okay? Once again, I'm not a big fan of these zone readish handoffs when we never actually pull, right? It's just, ugh. All right, so Garrett Nussmeier getting frisky. Wow. This is a no-look pass, okay? We're running a variation of mesh, okay? So 2 shallow drags. And watch what Garrett decides to do. He looks as if he's throwing this football to Aaron Anderson, steps up to the in the pocket, really good protection across the way. And look at where his helmet stripe is. you could see that he's looking center field, and it looks like at first he's looking at Aaron, and then at the last second he rips it to Kyren. That's really creative stuff, and I think that actually, I don't think that fooled the DB at all, but I think that's why that ball was low. Garrett was trying to manipulate the defense even more, and Kyren does a good job making a guy miss, and we pick up a very critical first down. I mean, like, this guy has done the dirtiest things. Like, if you want to see the cheap shot versus Arkansas, go check out my Arkansas film study, okay, from the A&M game on Power Hour SEC, all right? And watch this. What the hell is this right here, okay? It's just, I mean, that's just terrible. That's terrible, okay? Now, I don't like that they're putting their hands on our guy. Okay, I understand they're trying to break it up, but I don't think any staffer should ever put hands on any of our guys. I just don't think that that's necessary. Okay, and then of course, just on brand for Shamar Turner, just the cheapest dude alive, basically. Okay. You guys know I'm a big Xavier Thomas guy. He's got to make this catch. I mean, there's no other way around it. This has been basically our offense, so, and this is kind of an indictment on Joe Sloan, right? Obviously on the last one, that was on Garrett. We didn't complete the second down pass, but this time, our offense is a bunch of third and long conversions, 3rd and 7 or longer. We have been converting these all season long. I don't mind throwing this to Aaron right here, but Xavier's just got to catch this. And the funny thing about it is he has really struggled this year making the difficult grabs. Miss one versus Ole Miss. I mean, we've got to have it. We just do. Look, if you make this grab, it might not be far-fetched to say that LSU goes on to score a touchdown here. We have to settle for a field goal, and it gets ugly. All right? It's a difficult grab. And this is why, could this ball have been placed better by Garrett? Sure. Okay? But part of why I'm so anti-jumping, I mean, he did have to jump to catch this, is because, once again, it sets yourself up for a big, big, big hit. All right, let's move ahead here. This play is 110% on Whit Weeks. All right? Man, your responsibility is this A-gap. All right? And the other bad Whit Weeks game. So Whit Weeks is the best player in our defense, right? Him and Swinson. But he has really struggled this year versus zone read, right? He had a tough game versus South Carolina, Lenore Sellers, of course. You've just got to carry out your run fit. This is the contained defender. His job is the quarterback. All right, Womack's job is to read this guy. Your job is this A-gap. But watch what happens. Whit Weeks guesses that Marcel Reed is keeping the football, and he plays a contained role, which leaves this gap wide open. Okay? You've got to avoid this, right? If you're Whit, this is just your role, right? And you don't run it. The thing about when you play a zone read quarterback, you really can't go into the mindset, hey, I need to go out there and make a play, right? I need to go out there, fly around, make a play. When you're playing a zone read team, your first instinct should be, what's my assignment? What's my job, right? It's a completely different mindset. Okay, so now we get to another Marcel Reed run later in this drive, all right? The thing about a Blake Baker defense is he likes to have a lot of havoc, right? He likes to have a lot of penetration, changing up the looks for the offensive line. But once again, if you play a zone read team, every gap needs to have some type of resistance. Okay, so watch what happens here. Whit Weeks decides to go to the outside. Someone's got to play right here, okay? I don't care who it is. Someone needs to be here. But watch what happens. Both our backers get to the outside shoulder of this tackle, and they get washed out going this way, and then Reed's just reading where to go, and he's able to bounce it through here for a huge gain. All right? We really struggle taking on blocks in the zone read game. We like to loop around and just get washed out of plays. It's a problem. Okay, 3rd and 5. Your number one goal as a defensive play caller on this 3rd and 5 versus Marcel Reed is no matter what, we want him to throw, right? We want the football to leave his hands. I would much prefer the ball get thrown to somebody open in the end zone than allow him to just run this in as easy as he was able to run this in, okay? 3-man rush, no quarterback spy. And I would love to do a deep analytical deep dive when we back out our edge players, right? Obviously, Matt House did this a lot with Ovia Goofy last year to no avail. Okay, so we're taking our best player out of the play, essentially. And in this spot, if you're Gio Paez versus a dual-threat quarterback, penetration is not important, right? I would much rather you just stand here and just sit and force him to have to throw this. But once you part the C's up the middle, there's nobody here, okay? So I'm guessing this was a draw the entire way because this offensive lineman was releasing down the field. But maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. And Reed is able to run this thing in. Now, big mistake right here for Major Burns, okay? You've got to just tackle this guy. If you just hit him square instead of just stick your shoulder in there, he's probably not spinning off and scoring here, right? And then Burns doesn't really get back into the scrum. What are we doing? All right, here we go. 1st and 10. And we have Caden Durham here on a little check down. Obviously, this would have been nice getting the football in his hands right here. So we roll out to the right side. Kyren, bends off his route. So this is there for a potential difficult completion. And did he actually catch this? No, he didn't. All right, so we get to the Garrett Nussmeier interception. And this was bound to happen. Brought this up in the Arkansas Film Study as well. If you're just running comebacks and on the back of your drop, you're immediately just throwing comebacks. Just because there is a vertical here, especially if it's into the boundary, that doesn't mean that this DB can't come out here on this comeback and pick it off, even if you're throwing with a lot of anticipation. It was just bound to happen, right? I'm not as mad about that pick because we like quick comeback routes, but at some point, one DB was going to pick it off. So Garrett needs to play smarter football when it comes to that. So we have a few different things to discuss on this play. The first is the running back in the passing game. All right, when we blitz, we have had major issues picking the back up out of the backfield. It was really bad versus UCLA in that first half. And there's a few different ways you can run this, right? Once Whit Weeks is blitzing, your job is now to run with the running back if that's what you want the call to be, right? Another thing you can do is have the Mike take over the running back, but the Mike is blitzing. So, that's a problem, and this becomes a wide open throw. Now, the thing that also bothers me is we have had some issues with understanding assignments, all right? So, we are blitzing Greg Penn through this A gap. And what we want 12 times out of 10 is unblocked A gap pressure. All right. So we want this to be as clean of a run through for Greg. But what happens here is RDT Parashan gets really tight. Okay. Your gap is right here. And you'll see that 75 is able to make a ridiculous play. Okay, this is Cam Dewberry. I think he's in for Chase Pasantis. And watch this play. Bang! He's able to stick a chicken wing out there because Perry Shan wasn't shaded enough here. Now, it wouldn't have made a difference really at all because this was such a quick developing play. But we want to give our backers, and Whit was able to deflect it, and that did slow the play down some. We want to give our backers a chance to go run through unblocked A-gap pressure. So this ends up being a good job by Sage Ryan taking on this block. He doesn't make the tackle, but he does slow him down, and Swinson does chase it down from behind. All right, so one thing we're going to talk about is ceilings and floors, right? Garrett Nussmeier has a higher ceiling than Marcel Reed, but Marcel Reed gives your offense a higher floor. This is exactly what I'm talking about. So pre-snap, just based on this alignment, especially with where this DB is located, I am working this side of the field, even if that's not where the design of the play is supposed to go, based on this alignment of the DB's leverage, right? You see he's way off this receiver, shaded to the inside. This is money, all right? Money. I want to be throwing that all day, every day. You also could hit this shallow drag for some yards, okay? You could also hit this angle route right here for some yards. But instead, he decides to run, and because Braden Swinson's an absolute freak, you know, a lot of the times he's liking his ability as a quarterback to get around Swinson here. But Swinson's a freak, right? So versus most defensive ends, this is a 7, 8, maybe more yard gain. But that's what I'm talking about. You know, just a dual threat quarterback, especially one that could run like Reed, it raises the floor of your offense, even though he can't throw or read a defense really. All right, it's 2nd and Winfield here. And, well, remember what we were talking about? Running plays where your offensive line doesn't have to execute a single block. Well, the Tennessee play I showed you a little bit earlier is exactly the play that they're running here. So you're showing counter to the left, pulling a guard and a tackle, and even though the running back is to the left, and if there was going to be a handoff, more than likely it's going to be to the right, watch how this guard and tackle pulling really makes the defense think that it's some variation of a run. Look at how tight our linebackers are to this fit, right? It's because we're thinking that it's a guard and tackle pull, and then obviously Marcel Reed, since he's been running on us, we have so much concentration on him keeping it that it opens up so much space here to the outside. Notice how our defense here is just stacked. And when you're stacked, it's never good. You never want your guys in a straight line like that, right? And Amari Daniels, Savion Jones has a chance to make a play. It's a really difficult play to make, and they pick up all these yards to make it 3rd and manageable. And now this time, Marcel Reed gets it, and he's just basically keeping this the entire way. And obviously, this is a play that AYS and I talked about until the wee hours of the morning. And he and I got into a little bit of a shouting match over whose fault this is. So let's take a look at it from the reverse angle. Okay, so I wish this was like the typical end zone angle, but let's discuss what went wrong here, okay? You know, it all comes down to what you're taught, right? It's nearly impossible to know whose job is whose, all right? Based on how this looks, okay, basically Blake says this is on Greg Penn. I just don't think so. Greg Penn, we have been shooting him through the A-gaps pretty much this entire half. I think his job right here is this place, the play side A-gap, right? But what happens is both our DTs just basically get pummeled. And, God, it's just kind of tough to see here. I know it's a lot of fast-forwarding and rewinding. I mean, yeah, I'm guessing this is his assignment right here, all right? And because Savion Jones knows he has a blitzer here with our guy Major Burns right here, Major Burns' job is now the quarterback. He just didn't get flat enough, right? If you get flatter, you might be making this tackle on the quarterback. It could just be that Savion Jones just guessed here that it's the defensive end or that the running back is going to keep it because the running back kept it on the last play. And maybe Savion Jones' job is to actually contain Marcel Reed. But I'm guessing it's not. I'm guessing Major Burns is responsible for Marcel Reed here. And he just takes a bad angle and or isn't athletic enough to make this play versus Reed. And this also got kind of weird because Reed really held this mesh point, right? Honestly, that's just as good of a pull as you're going to see. We normally like a mesh point to be held that long, and you see it's not really that clean of a mesh because a lot of fumbles happen with running backs and quarterbacks trying to determine who has what ball. That's honestly just as good of a pull you will see, and I don't know. It's really, really, really tough to see or know without knowing the calls. The bottom line, though, is it's not good that our defensive tackles are getting this blown back on the doubles. But whatever the case may be, that's just a really good read by Marcel Reed. He might not be able to read a defense in the passing game, but he is a very smart, creative zone read puller. Yeah, Garrett is just totally shook at this point. We have another false start penalty, and this is an RPO. God, if he actually would have handed this one off, would we have been cooking here? Maybe so. Maybe Caden could slip through here. It's just tough because Will has a difficult block to the inside. And once again, this reared its ugly head, and Mike Elko just outcoached us. They were ready for this, right? Garrett assuming just because there's a vertical shielding this nickel corner that this comeback is just going to be open here to Shelton Sampson, which I don't know if he's ever going to catch a single pass. And honestly, you could see that Garrett thought about throwing this RPO or this vertical right here. I would have loved to have seen that this vertical was there. But essentially, he throws this away, and it's second down now. Yeah, I'm open to changing my grades up to this point, but Caden Durham might have been the highest graded offensive player for me in this game. I mean, he was really good again. I mean, that is not an easy tackle to break, and he broke it, all right? And now he's getting vertical and putting the team on his back like he's done when he's been healthy for us all season long. At 3rd and 4, all right, first thing, we have got to do a better job with our snap count because watch this jump that Shamar Turner is able to get off the football, okay? That's just setting itself up for failure, right? And you want to know why he's getting such a good jump? We bleed so much clock to get into the next play, right? And part of why this pisses me off is it puts your offensive lineman at a disadvantage. I understand Garrett wanting to check in to the best play imaginable, but you also, and it's not that big of a deal this early in the fourth quarter, but we're in trouble. We are down by 11, all right? So bleeding a full 40 is something that A&M wants us to do, okay? So Turner, you could see, you're looking at him right now. He's looking at the play clock, right? So once he sees that, and as dirty and as he is, he's a smart player. He knows that he could fire off right now because the ball's got to be snapped, okay? So it's a lucky guess, but it's an educated guess, right? And you notice we are able to pick up the double, but we can't pick up the twister. Garrett does eventually find Aaron Anderson on the comeback. I say Aaron Anderson. Xavion Thomas. And, man, this has just been very strange. This has been very strange here from Xavion. I know this is nitpicky because he does make a really good catch here. Mississippi State Xavion Thomas is not only keeping his feet, he's running for a lot of yards after the fact. Just a weird situation. Just bad here from Joe Sloan. We're down by 11. And you think a simple handoff to the left behind Paul Mabenga is what we should do in this spot? No. It's just not what I would do. Okay? It's just not what I would do. Really good play here from Garrett. But, man, our offense is broken. It really, really, really is. And this is And look, a lot of this is on Sloan, right? But in particular, this specifically is on Hankton as well. All right, you are the passing game coordinator. All right. We do not want our receivers to ever be in the same spot, right? Especially in a passing situation when we're down by a lot of points, okay? So Aaron Anderson is running a vertical, and the way this is supposed to look is your job as the clear out is you've got to keep running vertically, okay? But watch what he does. He slows down. We're running dagger, all right? You're the vertical, and we're running a dig behind it. So we need you to keep sprinting, and that would help clear out the space. But take a look. Both of our receivers are in the same spot, all right? I don't know if dagger was the play call. That's what it looks like to me. And dagger is a really, really, really good cover 3 beater or middle of the field close coverage beater because the safety runs with the vertical and the corner runs with the vertical, and it opens up space behind it, right? So we need this to be a full-speed sprint, and Chris is daggering behind it, all right? So the spacing here isn't the best, but the dagger concept does work, and Garrett finds Chris. But still, it's bizarre. But, whatever the case may be, Hilton does drop the football. All right? But Hilton does drop the football at the end of this. Okay? Ball security. Come on, bro. Now, we get here. And so let's get back to our conversation with all vertical. So vertical here, vertical here, vertical here. It's hard to take all verticals out of any passing offense, especially one like LSU's, okay? They run a 2-man rush. So there's 9 guys into coverage. And Garrett throws his football into heavy coverage, right? Safety is over the top of this. This is more Aaron Anderson making a ridiculous play on the flight of the football. And that's Bryce Anderson, right? He is a very good defensive back when it comes to pass coverages. So that's more Aaron making a really good play. And it's just good stuff from number 1 right there. Yeah, I'm sick and tired of watching our guys lean, right? I think we needed someone to let our offensive line know that, and this honestly should have been sniffed out during film study, is like Ole Miss's defensive line. They do a lot of this as well, but they're one of the defensive lines that just likes to power through you. A&M's defensive tackles, they're not the absolute biggest gap eater type of players, but they love to swim and rip and use your aggressiveness against you, right? Now, we just lean so much, we stick our head down so much, and get very lazy with our technique, and they're just going to swim us all day, all right? I normally don't mind that some in the running game because if they swim to the outside, you can run underneath it, but when they beat you that clean, it's a problem, all right? Now, let's take a look at the other offensive guard here in this double. Can we trust DJ Chester and Mbenga to get a double team on the backside? What do you think? No. All right? Once again, I'm not going to criticize Paul Mbenga, but you get the point, right? Miles Frazier, he's a multiple-year starter. He's still getting whipped. It's been the case all season. He's getting whipped. And I'll be fair, Frazier's had good moments this year as well. But overall, if we were to say, has he exceeded expectations? I think most of us would say probably not, but I think a lot of us would say that about the offensive line in general. Good offense here from Sloan to roll this out to the left side, and we get this football to Trades Green. We've got to score this. We just do, okay? And we're short. We eventually do pound it in. Tutty. Okay, so Marcel Reed, we finally forced him to make a throw versus us on a rush 3, drop 8, all right? And Noah Thomas is their best receiver. It's on Jordan Gilbert, all right, who didn't have his best game versus his former team. And I get it. Obviously, a lot of nerves playing in the stadium where you began your career. But he just needs to be over the top of this. Give Marcel Reed a lot of credit. This is a really good throw. It really is, but we made it a lot easier on him. And one thing I'll say in this situation, if you're Jordan Gilbert and you know you're beat in this spot, pull him down. Just tackle him, right? Just tackle him. Because we would prefer the 15 yards instead of all this, okay? Okay, Let's get back to the zone read principles. In the spot, all right, this isn't on Whit Weeks if we're for sure blitzing him. We have got to make sure we keep contained, right? At this point, we would prefer them hand the football off because they do. We're eating this alive, okay? Suggs is right there, all right? But we decide to really bite in on this, and I don't know if Spears right here should have been here. Okay, he might have gotten pinned in too far. Yeah, that actually is what happened. I do think that's on Spears. Once again, it's really hard to know, but the bottom line is we just could not stop it for whatever reason. So I'm going back to recut this play. I don't look at PFF grades until I'm actually done with my initial film studies because I don't want it to influence my opinion too much. And Suggs had a really high PFF grade, but the more I looked at this play, and going back to the long Ole Miss run, the long touchdown run they had in that game, he has really struggled with gap discipline, all right? Now, LSU elects to be in something called a tight front. This is a defense that Dave Aranda ran, right? A 4-eye, a 0, and a 4-eye, all right? And we have got to maintain gap integrity, but the thing you don't want to happen is two guys being in the same gap. Now, that can happen in a tight front because you're two-gapping with the nose right here, right, where the nose is responsible for both A-gaps. The one thing we don't want to happen, though, is both guys kind of run into each other and take the same gap, right? Right here, A&M wants you to shoot this gap because that's where they're trapping, right? They want to shield you in. All right, and because Suggs decided to shoot this A-gap, that might have been the call, and the call might have been for the DT to loop around here, okay? But the problem here is both of our DTs cut each other off, right? Notice how they're just stacked, and they're kind of magnetized together right here. Now, once again, Savion Jones is running with his head cut off to the running back, which is his job here, all right? And then on the pull, we have a guy in this gap. So Marcel Reed says, look, I'm just going to find a gap. I know I can't pull it and run this way. Where's the gap? It's right here where JVR Suggs is. Now, once again, this could have been a loop stunt where our 0 is supposed to come around here. If that's the case, that's a good run stunt right there. But the bottom line is it's just poor run fitting. And this has just happened way too much during LSU season. Way too much. Wide open holes. And the problem here is this tight end has a chance to make a simple block right here on Spears. He misses him. And Spears actually ends up making a really nice tackle here. And this just gets into grown man football territory. This is a true freshman going up against an NFL running back, right? And, Whit can't get around here and make this play. And Spears is just never tackling Le'Veon Moss one-on-one. It's a tutty. All right, that's how quickly you can lose a football game. Look, tough year for Emory Jones overall. It's not been the season we all expected. But this is an elite pass rusher in a 12-point lead, knowing that he could just tee off. Does not help that we're giving up a lot of bull rush up the middle, right? Garrett can get out of this if there wasn't all this bull rush. There's just too much bull rush, and it's a sack. 3rd and 10. We get a Garrett Nussmeier scramble here, and it's a good one. All right, it's a really, really, really good one. Just a little too late. All right. All right, so we finally get a Garrett Nussmeier scramble, but in the famous words of philosopher JoJo, it's a little too late. Y'all know y'all like that song. It was a bop. It's just a little too late. Oh, man. And Garrett takes all these yards. And there was a few other scramble opportunities. So once again, check out the Patreon. But, man. Ugh. But we do finally get it for our first. All right, so we get to another Garrett Nussmeier interception. We finally get a running back check down throw. But because there's twisters and there's levels to the pressure, he's able to spy this out and just cut it off, right? Garrett doesn't ever really see him. And his defense, I'm sure it's been brought up a gazillion times in film reviews that he needs to throw this check down often. And the one time he actually does elect to hit this check down, he had one for a lot of yards last week versus Arkansas, and he chunked it into heavy coverage. This time, the guy's just boxing it out, and it's an easy pick. Okay? Now, as the Herbie clicker goes back and forth, notice what concept LSU is running. All verticals, right? I think we need to shelve all verticals for now, okay? It's just not been a profitable play for us. And, yeah, it's an issue. It's a major, major, major issue. It's a lot of end-zone angle breakthroughs, breakdowns. But that's why South Carolina was able to really take it to us. We suck at gap integrity versus these zone read games, all right? The single most important thing to do versus zone read, I understand it's very simplified of a breakdown here. Everyone's just got to maintain their gap. And it's not that you have to make a tackle or anything like that. And it's not that you really need to sit in that gap. It's hard, right? Guys are pushing against you. But you really just need to create some resistance, right? Static, the run fit just a little bit to allow someone else to come in and make a play. Normally, run fits aren't everybody's just eating up their gap and someone just flies in and makes a clean tackle. What you want to do is keep your gap long enough so you can gang tackle, all right? Sean Washington, former Georgia Bulldog, your gap is this A gap. The last thing we want you to do in this spot is get caught on this side of the center shoulder, all right? South Carolina ate us up because we kept doing this, all right? You've got to move, all right, and really sit in here, all right? We cannot let you get here. But guess what? You get here, and you turn yourself, and this is where you should be. Once again, it doesn't need to be great. It just needs to be decent, all right? And we're cooking, all right? We're getting cooked, excuse me. Now, is this a hold on the second level? Maybe, but you can also make a case that this safety running with the tight end here needs to get off. Is this major, or is this Sage Ryan? Yeah, it is Sage Ryan. It's typical Sage Ryan stuff right here. Okay, he is the absolute worst at this. The absolute worst. He cannot get off his assignment and ever do anything else. Like, normally his assignment is his assignment, and he's not good at breaking off of it and getting involved with the actual play, right? He just locks in on his guy. Guess what? 84 is not slipping out here, right? They haven't really shown a split zone look up to this point. And you're running over here, and that's where Sage should be, but, he's all the way in Ponchatoula, and, it's bad. There's no other way around it. It's just really, 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 really bad. That's basically been Sage's career, dating back to his true freshman season. But thankfully, Deshaun Spears makes the touchdown-saving tackle. All right, let's get to this third and goal. And we actually do make a stop here. Man, I am very shocked that Marcel Reed decided to hand this football off, right? I think if he keeps this, it gets sexy, right? But he decides to hand this off. It might have been a handoff call all the way. But, man, there's nothing there. There's nobody over here. But we do a better job, obviously, fitting this. Keep it contained. That's a really good play right here from Sage Ryan, all right, on Terry Bussey, a guy that we recruited pretty hard. Good stuff by Sage, and Spears comes in and makes another play. Okay, so we get to this final possession, and goodness gracious, you're running a vertical from the slot, and, they're keying this comeback route. Like, we have to adjust to this, right? We just do. You can't just play pitch and catch with comeback routes, okay? They're eventually going to key it. This should have been a pick as well. And we're just predetermining and just getting lucky. This DB just stops, right? If Des Ricks has any decent type of ball skills or anticipation, he's going the other way with it. get a little lucky, and Mason Taylor, of course, is very freaking good. Picks up an easy first down. All right, about 2:30 left to go. Third down. Third and about 6 here. And, basically this game is over now. But I don't really understand what Garrett's doing here. He's starting off looking to the left, and he decides to do this whirling Derbyshire move. He did this versus South Carolina where he just kind of ran into a sack. And, I don't really know what he's doing, right? If you're able to step up into this at all, Aaron was open on the drag, okay? Babanga's looking for work here. He's looking to the left. Doesn't ever look back right to pick up this twister. So that's why Garrett decides to spin out. But if you step up and you're able to buy some time, we're hitting Aaron for a big one right here. But it's a sack. Oh. All right, 4th and Natchitoches. Game on the line. Guess what we do? All verts again. We have to know in this spot that all verts isn't going to work. Okay? I understand we don't have any timeouts. There's really nothing we could do. But we had been showing on 3rd and longs that we were running all verts. All right? And this time it's a vertical here, vertical here, vertical here, deep over from Mason Taylor. Okay? And everything, honestly, is just covered. All right? They blitz a guy off the edge. We don't adjust the protection in time. And, well, if they're going to guess we're running all verts, guess what happens? Okay? Well, the pressure's going to get there. It's going to get there. Now, if this was a true slide to the right, then the way this should have been picked up is Emory leave this player for Miles Frazier, and then you pick up the blitzer. But, once again, they get a 2-for-1 here. And look, these are the routes. Nobody's back is turned. I mean, nobody's ready. Because the routes, I understand we have to pick up a lot of yards for the 4th and 15 here. But, we're definitely not going to get it running all verts with unblocked blitzers. So I was a little shocked. And it's not all verts. There's a deep over attached to it. And this had been a good 3rd and 4th down, converter for us, Mason on the deep over. But, Garrett just has to throw this up and just hope for the best. And this is just ugly, 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 fugly, ugly offense. Ugh. So, what I want you to do right now, you see Garrett Nussmeier's raw stat line, 25 of 50, 405, 2 and 3. I want you to guess what ESPN's QBR said his performance was. And QBR, for those that don't know, is a score from 1 to 100. 50 is a replacement level quarterback. 75 is considered to be good. And then 90 plus is elite. That's like Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. They were 95 plus QBRs, okay? So let's start with the defensive side of the football. Actually, let's start special teams. But here in just a second, I'm going to tell you what Garrett's QBR is. And the answer will shock you. I guarantee you it will. Now, we want to thank all of our partners, Zion Imaging, the 360 Spin Booth Experience. Got to love them. Also, everyone else, NOPOD, Sequoia Dental, and, of course, the NoOffSeason.com network. Now, special teams was a disaster. Like, I don't understand why special teams has been an issue. Obviously, the first year Brian Kelly was really bad, but this year it's been mostly good, and you just had a bad special teams game. Those happen, but, man, this, hopefully we never see this again. Now, we get to the defensive side of the football, and obviously they flat out dominated, and I mean dominated Connor Weigman, right? One guy that I really have always liked, we recruited him, Cam Dewberry. He got benched and then stepped in as a backup. And when I've done other Texas A&M film studies, he's been a really good teammate, right? And we'll get back to the offensive side of the football here in a second. All right, notice when our left guard went out of the lineup, he was out, right? A&M was without Chase Basantis, right? This is their best guard, right? A guy that we also recruited pretty heavily. And they had a really good replacement. Now, truth be told, Tyree Adams might have been the guy that stepped in instead of Paul Mbenga, and obviously Tyree Adams went through a procedure. But you notice A&M's offense didn't fall apart like ours did. Now, we really struggled with the zone read game. And it gets into a deeper philosophical thing with Blake Baker's defense, right? Blake Baker is a havoc defense, right? He wants to create so much chaos in every single play. When you play zone read teams, everybody's first role should be doing your job, being responsible for your gap and or assignment, right? So you really have to change your mindset, right? A dual threat zone read quarterback isn't going to do anything special, right? It's not like they are extending plays and doing anything crazy. They're just reading where you're giving them to go on any certain play. And the key to playing a zone read team is the same as playing a Navy triple option or anyone else. You've just got to do your damn job. You can't get too creative. You can't try and go out there and make plays. And that's why a guy like Whit Weeks struggles versus those kinds of things, right? Because when you coach Whit Weeks, you don't want to overcoach him because he has this transcendent playmaking ability. But you notice versus South Carolina, where he had a really rough game, it was just a simple zone read team. We could not figure out gap assignment football there. And then guess what? We have this game versus a zone read quarterback of Marcel Reed. We couldn't figure it out. And I understand it was bad, I guess you could say PR, that we just could not figure this out. And Greg Penn said we didn't prepare for Marcel Reed. Once again, we'll see what Brian Kelly says on a follow-up. He will be asked about it this week. But, really, I don't even think BK can fully answer. Well, he can, but I do think it's a better question for Blake Baker, right? The actual coordinator who sets these schemes up. And once again, Blake Baker has been mostly great. If Marcel Reed is never inserted into this game, guess what? LSU wins this game running away. But for Marcel Reed to come in and only complete 2 passes, that's it, 2 passes, and you get ran off the field, it's weird. It's very weird, and we acted as if we had never played this before, right? So it's a problem, and obviously this point has been made by many others. We end the season with 3 elite runners, and all 4 of the quarterbacks LSU play can run, right? So this is something that's going to need to get fixed in the bye week. But individually, I think JVR Suggs did some good things. The linebacker play tonight, when Connor Weigman was in, it was fine. When he wasn't in, it was terrible. Okay, so, and the secondary, obviously the save, dry, and play early really set the tone to strip it from Le'Veon Moss. I know Le'Veon Moss broke off a long one in the first half, but that was bound to happen. He's really good. It was okay. I'll live with that. Now, we get to the offensive side of the football, and I hate to do this. I really, really, really do. Okay? But we have got to have an honest conversation about this offensive line, right? This has been, by far, the weirdest disappointment in quite a while when it comes to LSU football, for being serious, right? I remember feeling like I was going to run through a brick wall when Will Campbell, before the season, said, hey, we're going to run the football. You guys know we're going to run the football. You can't do anything about it. And, man, I don't recall an LSU run game being quite like this. Now, they've had run issues, at the end of the Orgeron tenure for sure. But, man, it's bad. It's bad. Now, once again, I like to put my money where our mouth is, and if I'm going to criticize, a run game, that's why, I shared the Tennessee example, and I hope LSU actually runs that versus Alabama, because we saw it work versus Alabama, and I've seen it work quite a bit. There's plenty of other examples that I could show of how I would like the run game to look, right? And then A lot of that is run blocking. A lot of that is Garrett Nussmeier's inability to run. That makes us tough, right? It makes us easy to defend, if you will. So the run game is very much broken. But we'll go in and discuss Joe Sloan. Our run sequencing is worse, right? A lot of first down pass doesn't go for anything, and on 2nd and 10, we're running, okay? It's a problem. That's a problem. It gets you static. It gets you very to be in a very obvious situation where defense just destroy you. And I'm tired of seeing it. I really, really, really am. And then obviously the pass game. I've said what I said about all verts. I don't want all verts to be completely eradicated from the playbook, but I'm kind of tired of seeing it. I would love for LSU. I would love to actually do this myself. Go through and see how many times we have run all verticals or something along those lines and actually see if it's been a productive play for us this year. All verts was how Garrett Nussmeier threw his final interception. Now, I'm not saying vertical routes aren't something we should just banish from the playbook altogether, but, when you really ask yourself about all verts, it really is a play that does not bode well for any of our strengths and only makes our weaknesses that much weaker, if that makes sense, right? A big benefit of running all verts is a quarterback who is really good at throwing the football vertically down the field. And as good as Garrett Nussmeier has been at times this year, that's been something we have not done a good job of, which is throwing straight vertical routes or really, 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 really deep overs, right? Well, our overs have been fine, but still. The second benefit of all verts is a quarterback who can run, right? Because if you run all verticals and you happen to be playing man coverage, the linebackers and overhang defenders are going to be so far back or their back's going to be turned to you. It opens up huge pockets of space in the QB scramble game, but don't do it because Garrett, it's just not his game. He chooses not to. And then in order to run all verts, you don't have to have the absolute best protection, but the worst type of pressure versus that is pressure right up the middle, and we give up quite a few. We give up bull rushes quite a bit. That's how, once again, go back to the Garrett Nussmeier interception, last one versus Ole Miss. That's basically what happened. So we need to heavily consider what we're doing with our passing concepts there. Now, once again, I've said my piece on Joe Sloan. This is where I would change some things up. And this is the hardest position to switch up at this point in the season, especially if we don't know what Garrett Dellinger's status is moving forward, on top of the Tyree Adams injury, Lance Hurd transferring to Tennessee. But our offensive line depth isn't where it needs to be, and our starters aren't where they need to be, right? Miles Frazier has regressed. I don't think Emory Jones has been as bad as Miles Frazier, even though the PFF grades would potentially say otherwise. But I do think that they need to make a switch at center. I don't think DJ Chester is it. In high school, I believe he was mostly an offensive tackle. And, he got that good experience as a center versus Missouri in his true freshman season, stepping in for Marlon Martinez and Charles Turner. So I would make a switch. Now, the downside of that is this is your center, right? It is the single most important offensive lineman that you have because they do the single most important thing you do, which is snap the football, okay? His snaps have actually been very accurate. They have been. But look, it's not been pretty. Now, does our offense make it easy on our offensive linemen just in general? No, it does not. We take a while to run plays. Our linemen are in stances for a while. Our play calling is very predictable. We don't run a lot of plays where the play design is what opens things up instead of the players themselves, the blocks, the route concepts, and all of it. So we really need to get back to, doing some tight end leaks and things like that where we're just getting guys open based on the concepts instead of having to rely on Garrett Nussmeier guessing on comeback routes, which is also a big problem. And even after Garrett Nussmeier made that interception, there were other instances where that concept could have been picked off. So I don't know if you can switch out DJ Chester this late in the season, but guess what? You got 2 weeks to figure it out. I would cross-train somebody. Now, I know Dellinger, I think it's a backup center, but I don't. His snap versus Florida State a few years ago were rough. We don't know what his health is, and he's such a huge advantage at left guard. Anyway, now we get to the wide receiver play. Chris Hilton was not it tonight. One catch he fumbled it. Lucky enough he was already down. The drops were bad. The mistimed jump. Xavion had a chance to make a really tough catch and make a nice run after the catch. Couldn't do it. Aaron was special. Kyren was very good. CJ tried to tough it out, and then, of course, was in, basically the boot. And Mason was okay. Now, God, could they have been better tonight? Maybe. All right, A&M's a really good defense, as many of you know. Running backs, Caden Durham was fantastic. I mean, I can't really hear any argument to the contrary. I don't really know if I saw a carry where he could have, extracted more juice out of it. I felt he was overall pretty solid, as he has been all season. And then, of course, in particular on that first drive, he made some very special plays. Now, we get to the spiciest portion, which is Brian Kelly and Garrett Nussmeier. But before we do that, please, if it is in your heart's desire, please drop a Venmo, Cash App, Super Chat donation. And it goes a long way for our independent film studies. Okay. Sorry, Garrett Nussmeier. 25 of 50. Obviously, the interceptions were very, very, very bad. And, QBR does penalize you quite heavily for INTs. His QBR in this game was 73. And once again, 50 is a bad QBR, all right? Or it's a replacement level QBR. Anything below 35 is where you're playing terrible football. His QBR is 50, and the one thing about QBR is it does have a tendency to overrate QB scrambles and runs just in general, and Garrett does none of that. He had one scramble in this game, and QBR does penalize you for sacks. He had 2 sacks. It was still 73. Now, that's not me defending Garrett. That's not at all. I mean, the interceptions just could not be thrown the way that they were thrown. But can we also admit that this offense, as is really hard to operate? All right, this is not an easy offense. And don't take my word for it. Take Brian Kelly's word for it. We brought this up, and I don't have the exact clip. And this wasn't his intended way of sharing this clip or saying what he said. It was more so along the lines of, hey, Garrett Nussmeier, his completion percentage isn't the highest because we're asking him to do a lot of difficult things. We don't throw a lot of bubble screens and high percentage throws because that's just not who we are offensively. Well, that's part of the problem is, Marcel Reed outplayed Garrett Nussmeier in this game coming off the bench. But was what Marcel Reed had to do more difficult than what Garrett Nussmeier had to do? No, it wasn't, right? So it's an issue. It's an issue. I think there's just too much on Garrett's plate, and we need to knock out of his psyche that on the comeback routes, that you don't just throw it blindly just for the sake of playing really quick. And if we're running deep routes, you have to have the QB run game. You just do. Even if it's a run for 5 or 6 yards, it puts defensive linemen on their heels, right? At least do it early in the game once or twice because you're getting them in the back of their mindset, hey, this guy can run for some positive yards. It does change things up. But it doesn't matter what kind of excuse you give them. You can't throw the game away like you did on the Aaron Anderson interception. And there should have been more picks mixed in there. But I do want to share 73 QBR despite 50% completion percentage and all of that. And there wasn't some stupid garbage time touchdown late in this game really at all to pad to those numbers and make it look better than they actually are. But he's got to be better, and there you go. Now, we get to Brian Kelly and we get the big picture. Let's talk about Brian Kelly first. LSU deserved to win this game. In other words, you did more to lose this game than A&M did to win it. All right? You lost the basic tenets of football. Your quarterback turned the football over, and you could not maintain gap integrity on defense. That is basic football tenet. I mean, that is literally the first thing you are taught once you reach middle school football. We're not going to turn the football over, and we're going to go out there and stay in our gaps, right? It just honestly, baseline is that simple. And as great as it is to have an aggressive defense and all of that, the first thing you should do is fill the gaps. Start with that, right? When you're playing a zone read offense, which honestly is very simple, there's two things that could happen. The quarterback can keep it or they can hand it off. Now, of course, a few times they tossed it, but he had 2 throws the entire game. 2 throws. So you have to strip everything down and just do that. And teach your guys just to do that, all right? That is partially on you, Brian Kelly. It is, right? And then the second thing here is offensively, some things need to be easier for this offense, right? Some things need to be. And it's a problem. It's a big problem. So, obviously, not his total fault, but you had a 17-7 lead, right? And the fact that this game ended 38-23, and it is kind of weird because Brian Kelly's 2022 trip here ended in a 38-23 scoreline. And that game kind of went the same way, right? You had a turnover that basically cost you that game in the third quarter, and you felt like you were the better team in the first half. This time, LSU clearly was the better team in the first half with the domination of Connor Weigman. But you have to be able to adjust. And Marcel played a lot, and he decided to make that switch and won them the game. Now, we get to me, the biggest thing is, why are we having struggles in the second half? What's the problem with this? You know, even coming out of the third quarter versus Arkansas, it was a little bumpy. But the truth is, we just got to be better at finishing games. It is what it is at this point. Now, there's a lot of comments after the game. Is this BK really that guy? Overall, he's done a really good job coaching this team. Like, we would have never thunk after the South Carolina game that we would be where we are right now, but that's where we are right now. So, yeah, I get there. Now, can this team make the college football playoff? Well, this is what I said before the season, and I was very consistent about this. This was the game that I had circled on our calendar that if I had to pick one we were for sure going to lose, it was going to be this one. But, I like to split football up into halves, right? Because it just increases the sample size of your season. You dominated the first half versus Arkansas. You dominated the second half versus Arkansas. You dominated the first half versus Texas A&M. And then you played about as bad of a half of football as you possibly could have versus Texas A&M. So, look, I think mostly we have played good football over the past couple of weeks, even though the Ole Miss game was indeed very shaky. It was tough for me when I looked at the schedule to see LSU winning all 3 of these games sandwiched between this bye. Now, this gets into a weirder kind of discussion. For LSU to make the playoff, I wouldn't have wanted to back into the playoff anyway. So, if you're a true playoff team, especially with an expanded playoff, you go 4-0 the rest of the way. All right, and I can live with that, right? I would prefer to be going into the playoff in form, playing our best football instead of, kind of losing a game and back it into, a situation where we're a whatever seed. So you went out. You're very well in contention for the SEC championship game. It's just going to be very, very, very hard. So let me know what you guys think down below, and we'll talk to you soon. All right? Overall, I wasn't too mad about this loss, right? Like, I really wasn't, because going into the year, this was the only game that Vegas even had us as underdogs. And, of course, we ended up being underdogs versus Ole Miss, but it was very slight, right? This was the only game where the other team was favored preseason. So that was another reason why I felt going into the year we were going to more than likely drop one of these two games versus Arkansas or A&M. It's just really hard to win back-to-back on the road in the conference. So you guys know the live stream schedule, and we'll talk to you soon. It is Power Hour LSU. Boom. I hate saying someone deserves to be swapped out, but it is what it is now. And tonight, and look, I'm cheering for everyone. If Brian Kelly makes no changes, I hope we come out and dominate. But tonight we are doing... Oh, let me ask you guys this. Is anyone else tired of the dog? I like old Ben. And tonight we are doing... some Buffalo Ranch chicken. Let's go.